Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to see how to create a zip file creator and extractor using C#. This is the UI we are going to begin with. We have a text box to denote what is being selected, whether it's a collection of files or folder, and we have choose button that allows us to choose certain files or folders using OpenFileDialog or folder browser based on this particular checkbox. If file is selected, it will show up open file dialog where you can select multiple files, and if it's not selected, it will show up folder browser where you can choose a single folder, and then you can go ahead and click on zip, which would zip the selected files and folders into a zip file. And also you can do an unzip, which would extract the contents of a zip file and copy it to the folder that's being selected. Additionally, you can also encrypt the zip file while zip operation. You could use the same password for unzipping as well. So an encrypted zip file can be unencrypted by the password we choose to give. So it's on a whole, we are zipping files and folders with encryption or without encryption. So these are the scenarios we are handling with this simple UI. So let's get started. So in this problem, the first thing to handle is whether to select a file or folder. For file, by design, we are going to show OpenFileDialog, and for folders, we are going to show FolderBrowserDialog. Since we are going to reuse the same UI component, it's required to use Factory Design Patten here to show up certain dialog based on this particular checkbox. So let me go ahead and create that. Let me add a folder here. Let me add an interface first. iDialog chooser. This is common between a file dialog and folder dialog. Let me add file dialog and folder dialog classes. Both the file dialog and folder dialog classes will implement the iDialog chooser interface. So this interface will have a few things. First one is a show dialog method. So basically this would have a return type of dialog result, which is the return type that OpenFileDialog or folder browser will have. So let me add the namespace. So this is ready. We need to denote what is being selected. For file dialog, it will be list of files, and for folder it will be a list of folders. So we are going to use list of string to denote the selected items, and also we need to denote what item type this particular dialog is going to work with. So let's add enum here, and it will be file and folder. So now let's add a property in this interface. So this is cool. The interface is now done. So we have a type of our item type, which would denote whether it's a file or folder, and we have a list of string, which is selected items, which would denote multiple files or multiple folders, and we have a method show dialog, which would take the responsibility of showing open file dialog or folder browser based on the particular instance type. So now that the interface is clear, we are moving to the individual classes. Let's implement here. So now it would show I have to implement these members. So let me implement this in both the classes. So let me complete the file dialog first. So let me add a constructor. file dialog. So here I am going to return file type, item type, and I am going to maintain a private variable, a list of string files. Let me initialize files in the constructor, and I'm going to return the files here. So we have done with type, which is file in this case, and we have returned the private variable files for the selected items. We have initialized it in constructor. We are going to do the same for folder dialog. So let me return folder here. Let me add a private variable folder, then return folders from selected item property. In the constructor, let's initialize folders. So we are done with the basic members. We need to add things for this method in both the classes. I'm going to show OpenFileDialog for file dialog cases. I'm going to enable multiple selection here, and I'm going to get the result of show dialog in this result where I'm going to initialize files. So I'm getting the list of file names from the OpenFileDialog to our variable, that's the files, and then I'm going to return result. So show dialog for file dialog is done. We need to do the same for folder dialog. Let me use folder browser dialog, and I'm going to show this. Folder browser only supports single folder selection. It doesn't support multi-folder selection. For us, it's fairly simple. Let's add what's getting selected in the dialog to the folders. So we have added the equivalent show dialog method for folder dialog using the folder browser dialog. So we have handled both file dialog and folder dialog here, and both the classes will behave differently uh, for each of the member functions and properties. Now we have to create a factory for dialog factory. Let me add that. So this class will have only one static member function, which would return iDialog chooser object type. This would only take a boolean input. So if it's a file, then return file dialog, else return folder dialog. So the responsibility of factory class is clear. We just give a boolean input and we get different objects out of it, and which share the common interface, so that in the UI code only whatever this interface exposes will be used. So let's go ahead and add code behind for the UI. So let me add a event handler for this choose button. First I'm going to have iDialog chooser. So this particular reference takes care of what is currently being chosen, whether it's multiple files or a folder, and we could use it in zip and unzip event handlers as well. So here we are going to use the factory class we just created and initialize this. So get me the dialog. I need to determine whether to show a file dialog or a folder dialog. To do that, we have a checkbox here, which is this file checkbox. I'm going to use that. So if it's checked, we need to show file dialog. If it's not checked, we need to show folder dialog. Those responsibility is taken care by the factory class itself. At runtime, we would create the required object type, and the particular dialog will be shown. So the factory pattern takes care of all these responsibilities for us. We just can keep the code clean in the UI. So the next step is show the dialog. When I show the dialog, the user could have selected the files or folders, or he could have rejected it. So based on the result, I have to proceed further. If the user has made the selection and pressed OK, we proceed. So now for the positive case, user could have selected multiple files or a single file or a single folder. For single folder, I am going to display the folder. For single file, I am going to display the file. But for multiple files, I am going to say whether it's 3 files selected or 5 files selected. That's it. So I'm going to handle that here. If current dialog dot type is file type, and now we are going to add condition based on the number of files selected. If current dialog dot selected items dot count is greater than 1, which means multiple files are selected, I'm going to just display the count here. Let me use an interpolator. This would allow concatenation of the variables within the string easy. Else I'm going to just display the single file that is being selected. So the file dialog cases are handled. Now we could go ahead and handle the folder cases. Since single folder will always be selected, we just need to write the same. Let's compile this and run this. So the UI is up. We can choose. Yeah, we browser folder. Folder browser is displayed. Since we have not checked this, let me select this dummy folder. Yeah, the folder is displayed. Now let me select a file. If I select a single file, that file path is displayed. If I select multiple files, 2 files are selected. Yeah. So the selection part works as expected. Now we have to proceed with zip and unzip operations. So for handling zip operations, we are going to use a NuGet package, .NetZip. So let me add the latest version. Now let me add even a handler for zip and unzip functions. First, when the user clicks this button, I'm going to open up a dialog, that is save dialog, to get the zip file location and name from the user. So let me do that. Let me add a filter here. Now let me show the save dialog. So now the user has selected a particular file location and the name given for the zip file. We can go ahead and zip the already selected contents. First, we have to know whether file is selected or folder is selected. We have the information in current dialog reference we have already added. So when the current dialog.type is file item type, we know it's file we are dealing with. So if the current dialog.type is a folder, we have to process it as a folder. So now we can go ahead and use the library function, and we can go ahead and give the file name from dialog itself. We have created a instance in zip file and given the save dialog file name to that particular zip file instance. Before saving the file, the first thing we need to do is encrypt it or not encrypt it. So we can check whether this particular text box is empty or not. If it's empty, don't encrypt it. If it's not, encrypt it. So let's first add a method for that and pass in this particular zip file. So if the text box of password is empty, we are not going to do anything else set. So we are checking whether the text box is not empty. If it's not empty, just set zip file.password to the password, and also select the encryption to this. You could select other option as well. Now that we have set the password, the only task that remains is we have to add the selected files to the zip file and save it. So let's go ahead and do that. To add a file to the zip file, we have add file method in the library. First, let's give the file name, which is the whole path, and we need to give an entry name, basically the file name alone from the whole path. So let's say we have 5 selected files. We will go with this for loop and add the files one by one, and while adding it we give the complete path in file name and entry path by path.getFileName. Once you have added all the required files, you can just save it. Let me add the folder handling as well. It just remains the same. We need to open a zip file. First thing we need to do is set password. Then just zip file dot add directory. In this case, the folder dialog will have only one selected item, so we have to index it with 0 and get it so that we get the folder path. So once we got the folder path, we need to save it. So let's go ahead and test it though. First, let's go ahead and select a folder. I have selected my dummy folder and it's displayed here. Let me zip it. Okay, I have given the name. Let's save it. So I haven't done anything else to show it's saved. So let's go ahead and see. Yes, we have this ready. If you open it, we could see the contents of the folder, just like we could see it in the Explorer. So we have effectively saved this particular folder into this particular zip file. Let's try with encryption. Now I am going to encrypt with a password. So you could see we have created another zip file. In this case, we have an asterisk at the end, meaning it's encrypted and you can't view without a password. So let me check whether the password is working or not. Yeah, the password seem to be working fine. So we have completed with the zip operation. We have created an unencrypted zip file and an encrypted zip file, and we have tested the password functionality as well. Let me go ahead with unzip operation. We need this particular files as well, and let me add a dummy folder. So now let's test out the file conditions. I am selecting this file type. It will show up a file browser. I have selected two files and created it. Let me not add a password so that we can test unencrypted case. My files. Let's see what we got. So my files. It created an entry for two files that we selected, and then we can go ahead and try a unzip operation. So let me add an event handler for that. So for unzip operation, first the user need to be shown folder dialog to select a folder to which the file need to be extracted. So in the event handler of unzip, first we could create a dialog chooser, a new dialog to show us the folder path where the zip file contents are to be extracted. So just use the dialog factory and get dialog files. This would essentially give us a new folder browser. So let's show the folder browser and get the results out of it. So now we have the folder to extract the contents of zip file into. Now the thing to do is use the zip file like before. Before using the unzip operation, user have to select the zip file via the choose button. So we will have the information ready in the current dialog. So now we have used a zip file. The next thing to do is the encryption part. Let's set the password for extracting as well. It follows the same step as creating the zip file. Then we have a method called extract all. It takes the argument of the folder that we currently chose using this newly created dialog. Let's also show this extraction has completed or not. So now let's see this in action. First we will select a zip file. So let's go ahead and select the file. Or yeah, we will select an encrypted thing, and we will enter the password, and we will try to unzip it. It will ask where to unzip. Now let's go and select the output folder in the test. Extraction completed. If we go to the particular folder, you could see the contents of the zip file. And let me try for a failed password case. I will add a wrong password. It should throw an exception. So let's try this out. Let me add a new file folder. Sure, yeah, it's giving us bad password exception. It's a wrong password. So you need to add a try catch block and handle this case as well. So we have seen in this example of zipping multiple files and folders into a zip folder, and also extracting that particular contents of the zip file to a separate folder, and we have seen how to encrypt and decrypt using password for a zip file. So if you enjoyed this video, like and share this with your friends and subscribe to this channel for future updates. Thank you.